We've got more juice bombs who are claiming to be natural. Time to get him. Today we're covering the latest TikTok sensation, Shizzy. He's a so-called natural bodybuilder, and one of the main reasons he's blew up so fast, similar to Sam Sulek, who we done a video on the other day, you can go and watch that here, is because of his insane physique and his captivating videos. The main difference between Shizzy and Sam is that Shizzy actually claims to be natural. Yep, that's right, this guy claims to be natural, yet he looks like a tank, and I can already envision the comments now. Shaun, you're just jealous because you're small. You haven't watched my video yet, so how do you know what I'm going to say? I'm hooking you in with what I'm saying, but be patient, my friend. So let's dive in and assess the evidence whether Shizzy is natural or not. Like the video, boys, before we do. Appreciate you all. Some of you may have seen that I've done a TikTok about this, but we'll save the spoilers to the end. Shizzy is 6'4" and his walk around weight is 230 pounds. That's 104 kilos. Let's take an initial look at Shizzy's current physique. Does he look natural? Now, a lot of people would say no, he's juiced up, but it doesn't really look like he's got any of the telltale signs of being enhanced. Usually what we're looking for is high vascularity, especially in the deltoids, in the traps, the chest, the legs. We're also looking for 3D muscle bellies where the muscle looks like it's bursting out through the skin. But Shizzy doesn't have that here. He's got a lot of mass on him, but not that super 3D effect that enhanced lifters have. His body fat percentage isn't really that low either, which is why he looks so big. He's still lean, but he's not under 10% body fat. So we have to remember that looking at these videos, a lot of that mass is attributed to the fact that he's 6'4". If you take anyone who's 6'4" with decent genetics and get them to bodybuild for 10 years, they'll also look like they're on steroids simply because they have a bigger frame and therefore they're able to pack more total mass onto that frame. I've got a cousin who's 6'4". If you're watching this, shout out to you. Make sure you like the video as well, or I'll get you in the gym. And he's got a similar build. He's got wide clavicles. He's got a big frame to pack a lot of mass onto, and he does actually hold a lot of mass. So a taller person has just got a bigger skeleton to pack more mass onto. That's why sometimes it can be deceiving, these taller individuals. It seems like they're all on the gear, but maybe they're not. They just have a big skeleton to pack that mass onto. But anyway, Shizzy being able to hold this much mass on his frame comes down to one main factor, and that's having great genetics. In fact, take a look at his brother, who's also 6'4". So these great genetics clearly runs in the family. Even if we assume that they're taking steroids, these lads actually have really good genetics. Now, that being said about genetics, let's take a closer look at Shizzy's frame and look at more specifics. As I said, he has a big frame at 6'4" to pack a lot of mass onto. However, look at his shoulder girdle or his clavicle width. It's not that wide. So for 6'4", you could actually argue that he has a naturally narrow frame. Typically, you would associate this with someone who has an ectomorph build. This is someone who's naturally skinny. They find it hard to pack on mass. They have smaller joints. But because Shizzy's got really good genetics and can pack a lot of mass on his frame, I'd say he's somewhere in between ectomorph and mesomorph. And I know people within the fitness industry don't put too much emphasis and focus on the somatotypes. Somatotypes are just ectomorph, mesomorph, endomorph. But these somatotypes are just a good way to describe someone genetically. But anyway, you're probably thinking, Shaun, what the hell are you on about saying that he's got a narrow frame? Look at the size of him. He's clearly jacked and really wide. Well, sometimes when someone is tall with a really big chest and big arms, it can make them look wider than they actually are because their arms stick out that much. They pack that much mass on the arms that it almost makes them look wider. And the reason why we know this is the case with Shizzy, let's take a look at his back pose. Take a good close look at this picture. What muscles stand out most to you here? I'll give you a second to look. It should be clear. It's his arms. His arms are huge relative to the rest of his torso. Look at his back and his torso itself. It's actually quite narrow. It's safe to say that Shizzy has an arm-dominant physique. And to explain this a little bit further, usually people with narrower frames find it really easy to build the arms, but struggle to build the chest and the shoulders and the back. And then usually for people with wider clavicles, so think of your collarbone here, the wider and longer that is, the wider your frame is. And therefore, these people with wider clavicles and a wider frame find it very easy to build chest, shoulders and back, but really struggle to build their arms. If I was to categorize myself, I'd say I have an arm dominant physique because my arms will typically pack on a lot of mass easily, whereas I struggle to build mass on my chest, my back and my shoulders. And I've got friends who are the complete opposite. They'll pack loads of mass on the chest, the back and the shoulders, but just cannot get their arms any bigger. So looking at Shizzy, it's almost like he's a hybrid of the two. It's like he's in between because he's got a narrower frame, but he's got a really big chest and really big arms. But at the end of the day, we're all different genetically, and it's all on a spectrum. It's not just binary or black and white. Now let's go back in time. If we look at a picture from 5 years ago, this is what Shizzy looks like. So the question that comes to mind, is the progress that he's made in the last 5 years achievable naturally? Possibly, although you could argue the progress slows down as time goes on. And in that first picture, he's already jacked. Look at his arms. So how has he got to where he's at now? Shouldn't his progress have slowed down? Well, the counter argument to that is, well, even if his progress has slowed down, it's still 5 years of consistent, dedicated bodybuilding, eating really good and high training intensity. He's also 27 at the time of me making this video. So it is completely believable with his current physique that he is natural. If he had the current physique that he's got now, at 20 years old, then that is clear ultimate proof that he isn't natural. Time is a huge factor, and it's one of the main things that I consider when I'm trying to determine whether someone's natural or not. There's these kids who are coming out as natural, looking crazier than Shizzy, and they're only 19, 21 years old and only been training for 2 to 3 years. I'm sorry, but you just don't make gains that fast naturally. I don't care how good your genetics are. You've also got to account for the fact that most people don't train properly until at least a year in. It takes time to figure out the technique, to learn what works for you, and to be able to push yourself properly. So when these kids have been training 2-3 years and they almost look like Arnold Schwarzenegger, you've got to understand that the first year they were faffing about and trying to figure out what works for them. It doesn't matter how much they say genetics, a lot of the time it'll be down to steroids or SARMs at least. So when we look at Shizzy now, you could argue that there's nothing really that stands out about him. There's no crazy vascularity, nor are his androgen receptor sites around the traps and delts blowing up out of proportion. Men have more androgen receptor sites around the traps and delts, so usually when they get on gear, these are the first areas that the testosterone will bind to and blow up out of nowhere. So because we don't see this in Shizzy, this could also indicate that he's natural at the time these videos were taken. However, hold your horses, Jones Army. The one thing I'm suspicious about is when we go back and look at old pictures, even up until only a year ago, he looked significantly smaller, but he'd already been training for 10 years prior to these pictures being taken. Then in the space of 1 year, he looked like this. He made crazy leaps in his physique progress in the space of a year when he's already a decade deep into training. So it's possible that somewhere within this last year or 2 years, he's hopped on the gear in order to blow up his social media account. Because when you look at all his social media posts before this last year, he was only getting around 100, 200, 300 likes on a post. Then out of nowhere, he gets souped up and his social media pops off. As I always say in every video that I do like this, there is an incentive to take steroids and lie about it. A big incentive, a huge monetary incentive. We're talking about not just tens, but hundreds of thousands of dollars of income that you can make when you lie about your natty status. These people who we don't know, we feel like we know them because they've done a vulnerable video once, but we don't really know them. Why would we expect these people to have values and to have integrity when we don't really know them? Really try and think about this. If you was already training, already posting on social media, and then all you had to do was take a little pill and just don't tell anyone about it and keep doing the same things that you're doing, and now you're going to make tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of pounds, dollars a year, a month, would you do it? A lot of people say they wouldn't do it, but I guarantee 90% of the people who say they wouldn't do it probably would if that offer was presented to them. You're talking about life-changing money here. This is something we always have to consider. You do not know these influencers. Hundreds, if not thousands of people do it on social media. And it's also because they know if they tell the truth, then less total people are going to buy into their message and brand and just say, oh, they look like that because of steroids. Even though we know it's much more complex than that, the casual viewer doesn't. They won't trust someone's information if they find out that they're on steroids as much as if they were natural. It's the same reason why Mike O'Hearn still says that he's natural, because he makes a lot more money pretending to be natural than he would if he just said, yeah, look, I'm on the gear. Now, Shizzy has done a blood test to prove that he's natural. The only problem with this blood test is it was planned, which means it wasn't randomized. We spoke about this heavily in the Jake Paul video, which you can go and watch here. We talked a lot about drug tests and how it works and how you can beat the drug tests. You can plan your cycle around that blood test date to try and beat the test. So then you can cycle on and off in order to beat the test. Also, Shizzy showing his results were negative. I think it actually took him a while to come out with his results. And usually you get a quick turnaround with your blood test results. So I don't know why there was that delay in time. Was it because something's shown up on that test that he didn't want you to see and he had to go and get a new test instead? We don't really know. That is just speculation. But also, Shizzy passing this test doesn't mean that he's a lifetime natty. He could have done steroids or even just SARMs a year ago when his social media first started blowing up, and then cycled off right before his bodybuilding prep began. So now he has more muscle to show off going into prep. then by the time he gets the blood test done, nothing's showing up as suspicious. Like, I can't even tell you how many people will lie to your face. They will take steroids 1 year, then the next year get asked, are you natural? And they'll say yes, because their get out of jail free card is that they are currently natural. They weren't last year, but now I'm natural. So that's why the question to ask, if you're genuinely curious and you want to know if someone's taking gear, is, are you a lifetime natural? But even then, they will still lie. The way I like to look at it is, if it was a race, they've took a nitro speed boost to get closer to the finish line. Then they claim they've got the same engine as everyone else with no nitro speed boosts. And then everyone's standing there at the finish line clapping them, going, oh wow, your car and your driving is amazing. It's so much better than everyone else's. And they're just playing along with it like, yeah, my car and my driving's the best. All these other fools don't know what they're doing. Lad, you use the nitro speed boost and you're only cheating yourself, well, and thousands of other young impressionable lads who you're selling your programs to. Anyway, in my TikTok, I actually said I believe Shizzy is natural, but after a few weeks have passed by and I've analysed all the evidence, I don't believe he's a lifetime natural. I think at some point in the past he has taken SARMs or steroids, maybe over the last couple of years, kind of in line with his social media blowing up. And at the end of the day, I'm an open book. Prove me wrong in the comments if you've got a different opinion, and tell me why. Make an argument. Don't just say, he's natural, you're a hater, you're just hating because you're smaller than him. I'm not hating, I actually like Shizzy's content, I follow him. This is just me looking at the evidence and drawing my own conclusion. So what do you guys think? I appreciate you all. Like the video and tune in for daily uploads. See you tomorrow.